Alright, welcome back. We're going to be doing the Hail Caesar Legion's Emperor deck today. Except we're going to do it a little differently than we have in the past. We're going to split it up into a couple different videos going over the deck list. First thing we're going to do is a overview analysis where we're going to look at the commander itself. We're going to look at the spreadsheet. We're going to look at it a little bit more in depth than we did in the other videos. Um, and then in the next video, we're going to go through the creatures. In another video, we'll go through the remaining non-land cards. And then in the last video, we'll go over the lands. So stay tuned just a second. We'll get right into the commander overview, and then we'll jump right into the spreadsheet. Alright, so the Hail Caesar Precon deck out the box is what we're going to be looking at. And the commander for that is Caesar, Legion's Emperor. He's a Mardu, which is black, white, red. 4-cost, 4/4. Legendary human soldier. This deck does have a little bit of human tribal in it, so that is something to note. Whenever you attack, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, choose 2. Create a 1/1 red and white soldier creature token with haste that are tapped and attacking. Create 2 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens with haste that are tapped and attacking. I said that wrong. Option number 2, you can draw a card and lose 1 life. Option number 3, Caesar, Legion's Emperor, deals damage equal to the number of creature tokens you control to target opponent. So, we got a couple of things going for him. First thing, whenever you attack, so this is an attack trigger based deck. This deck primarily revolves around declaring your attackers. Something to note is this doesn't say, unlike a lot of other creatures that are attack trigger based, it doesn't say when this creature attacks. It says when you attack. So you can keep Caesar sitting on his chair in your back line and not actually throw him into your attack to get to still be able to trigger this ability. So that's important to think about and keep in mind. If you would rather keep your commander protected from combat damage, you can still trigger this by attacking with anything else. Whenever you attack, you may sacrifice another creature. So we have a little bit of an aristocrats going on here. Attack trigger based aristocrats. Self-sacrifice. Create 2 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens with haste that are tapped and attacking. So token gen. And drawing a card is a great utility, but it's not really something that this deck focuses in on. It's just there to help you increase your card draw, your hand size. This deck does have a slightly lower CMC than the original Mothman did, but we'll get into that in just a minute. And lastly, Caesar, Legion's Emperor, deals damage equal to the number of creature tokens you control to target opponent. So just looking based off of this, as using this as the commander, this deck is going to primarily focus on token gen. Token gen and attack triggers to create those tokens. Let's go ahead and look at the legalities for this particular card and the rulings that have been thrown out, because it's a good idea to understand the Oracle texts and how they actually intend the card to work. So you don't choose modes or a target for Caesar, the Legion Emperor's ability, at the time that it triggers. So when you attack, you don't choose a target for the burn ability. Rather, a second reflexive ability triggers when you sacrifice another creature this way. So it's got 2 triggers. The first trigger is when you attack, and then the second trigger is when you sacrifice. So when you attack, none of this happens. until you sacrifice the creature. When you sacrifice the creature, that's a secondary trigger. So that would happen after other when you attack things resolve. You choose modes, and if you choose the third mode, a target for that ability as it goes on the stack. Each player may respond to this triggered ability as normal. So when you attack, the option to sacrifice a creature would go on the stack, along with all of your other when you attack triggers. And then when you go through the stack and you resolve all of those in reverse order, as you do, then you get to this point where this ability is resolving. At that point, you can sacrifice another creature to do these various things. When you sacrifice that creature, this gets added to the stack right there, and that's when you resolve it. So that's an important thing to note. And then down here, the second one is soldier tokens created by Caesar's ability enter the battlefield tapped and attacking. But since they weren't declared as attacking creatures, no abilities that trigger whenever a creature attacks or whenever you attack, such as Caesar's own ability, will trigger as a result of these tokens attacking. So that is another important thing that people will sometimes try and use these to create these tokens to add more when it attacks triggers onto the, and it doesn't quite work that way. So that's a good thing to always check is the rulings to make sure that you really understand what your card can and cannot do, especially for your commander cards. All right, jumping into the spreadsheet. 100 card deck, as normal for commander. CMC 3.27. We have 0 planeswalkers in this deck, 6 instants, 5 sorceries, 32 creatures, 12 artifacts, and 12 enchantments. Now, we do also have some, again, that are doubles. So this rose here is a creature and an artifact, so it's marked twice. So this sum here will not total up to 100, but that's kind of the balance across the board. If you end up finding any cards that equal to the number of artifacts you control, or whatever the case is, you can just look and see how many that is. Our land balance is 35 total, with 16 black producers, 16 white producers, and 15 red producers, and 5 colorless utility cards. Let's look at the color identities. We've got 24 black, 34 white, and 20 red. So red is the lowest number on the identity and also the lowest on the land production, while still having a pretty even across the board number of lands that produce the mana. So that looks good so far. Then in the actual color ratio, we can see exactly what that kind of a difference that is. So white is 42 instances of white mana in your casting costs, compared to the second highest, which is black at 29. So that's a pretty big discrepancy there between 42 and 29, and then following that being 23 with red. I might think about taking a red mana and converting it into a white mana, possibly. Well, no. I don't know. I'd consider rebalancing that, making it a little bit more perfect, but I'll deal with all of that in future. And then if we look at the number of ramp cards that we have in the deck, there are 18 cards that either produce allow you to add mana to your mana pool, or create create treasure tokens, or things like that. Cards that allow you to get more stuff onto the battlefield faster. 13 card draw, 13 control, 2 protection cards, And so by protection cards, I mean things like Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots or cards that allow you to protect your own board state. Mystic Utility, so just general cards that contribute to the overall theme of the deck without falling into one of the specific abilities that the deck specializes in, which are Token Gen, Attack Triggers, and 1/1 counters. So Token Gen, we have 16 cards that give us token generation, 12 cards that give us attack triggers, and 9 cards that deal with 1/1 counters. So if we look at these quantities here, as a general rule of thumb, if you want to have at least one of each of these types of cards per game, you're going to want around 10 instances of it. So if you have between 8 and 10, for example, card draw cards, you have a solid chance of being able to draw at least one instance of that per game. If you have more, you'll have a higher likelihood, and if you have less, you'll be less likely to have that. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I usually try and shoot for 8 to 10, but in this particular deck, they went ahead and called it 18 ramp, 13 draw, 13 control, 2 protection, which is very workable overall. Definitely a creature-heavy deck. We have a lot more creatures here because creatures are able to attack. And so if we're not running those creatures, then our attack triggers are going to be, we're going to have to wait for a creature in order to be able to attack, and it just becomes a mess. So, creature-focused deck, passable land-to-color ratio balance, I would say, on this. Definitely functional. And good amount of ramp. Good amount of ramp for a lower CMC. Probably maybe a little bit more ramp than I would normally recommend, but that's fair enough. Overall, as I was playing this deck feels good. It plays quick. It's aggressive. It forces your opponent to either be on the defensive or take a whole bunch of damage. It produces tokens at a fairly decent rate. I think it could produce them a little bit faster, but out of the 3 games that I played with this deck, I managed to come out on top all 3 times. I was playing against a Death Touch based deck, so attacking was fairly risky, but I was also generating enough tokens that I could attack with my tokens and leave Caesar in the back and keep him protected, and was still able to continue building up, which was pretty amazing. Didn't have to lose out on any of my building with my commander. Only lost him a couple of times when my opponent managed to pull a fight card and get my commander to fight his Death Touch creatures. But yeah, overall, very solid deck. I was pretty happy with this one. Didn't like it quite as much as the base Mothman deck. But this is my second overall favorite amongst the 4 Fallout Precons. That'll do for this video. Kind of a general overview of how the deck looks, what kinds of numbers we're looking at, how it functions. In the next video, I'm going to go over the creatures that this deck has, and then we will start diving into the actual deck list of the Hail Caesar Precon deck. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.